What happens when a manager yells that God won't pay a widow's debt? Rosa was shamed, her papers torn on the floor. But a mysterious knock in Tando changed everything. You won't believe who walked in to turn her despair into a miracle. The heat inside the Pagasa office feels like a heavy blanket. Aling Rosa stands at the counter with a worn blue folder. Her hands shake like dry leaves in the wind. She owes 22,450 pesos to them. Mr. Magno, the manager, slams his fist on the desk. The noise echoes like a gunshot in the crowded room. Listen to me, Rosa. His voice booms across the hall. I do not care about your prayers or your candles. The room goes silent, as if the air vanished. Your God will not pay your debts, he screams. He grabs her folder and the thin plastic tears. Her birth certificate and store deed slide across the floor. Dirty boots leave marks on her only proof of life. People in the line step on her papers without looking. Rosa kneels to pick up the torn pieces of her past. Her son, Paulo, watches his mother crumble in public. She leaves with only blurry photocopies and heavy tears. The humid air of the barangay feels colder now. Have you ever felt that God was silent during your deepest humiliation? Before the crushing debt, there was a beautiful, steady order. For 14 years, Rosa was a cashier at SM North EDSA. She wore her bright green vest with immense silent pride. To her, that vest was a symbol of her dignity. It told the world she was honest and very hardworking. Every Friday, she walked to the office to remit earnings. She always saved 500 pesos for the local cooperative. This was her insurance for Paulo's distant bright future. On her way home, she stopped at the Jollibee branch. She bought a small bucket of chicken for her family. "Ma, you are the best," little Paulo would always scream. He loved the smell of the crispy golden chicken skin. Her husband, Efren, would smile and kiss her tired forehead. They built their small house, one hollow block at a time. It took years of sweat and saving under the sun. They were not rich, but their lives had a rhythm. They had a quiet faith that lived in their hearts. It meant saying a short prayer before opening the store. It meant keeping every single grocery receipt in a shoebox. Rosa used an old blue shoebox for her precious records. Every tiny piece of paper was filed by month and year. That box was her fortress against the world's heavy chaos. She felt safe knowing she had proof of every centavo. She never missed a single payment in those happy years. Every receipt in that shoebox was a witness to her sacrifice. If you believe that God remembers every tear and every honest work, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Efren was her rock in every single daily struggle. He spent his days fixing tricycles in the burning heat. "Do not worry, Rosa. The Lord loves the humble," he whispered. They sat on the porch, dreaming of a better life. They wanted Paulo to finish school and wear a gown. The green vest was always pressed for the Monday morning. She felt the presence of a silent protector back then. It was a time of peace before the dark storm. Every centavo was counted with care and very soft prayers. She did not know her shoebox would soon be tested. The rhythm of the city was about to turn cruel. The blue shoebox sat on the shelf like a treasure. It held their history of love and long, honest labor. The sun set over the barangay, painting everything in gold. They were content with the little they held in hands. The air smelled of jasmine and warm, dusty Manila streets. She believed that hard work always led to a blessing. Their small world was built on hope and steady hands. Nothing seemed able to break their simple, holy rhythm. The shadows were small, but they were slowly growing longer.
She smiled, unaware that the silence was about to end.
The steady beat of life stopped in early 2023. It was a Tuesday afternoon, under the scorching Manila sun. Efren was fixing a rusty tricycle near the busy market. His heart simply stopped beating, without a single warning word. The heat was too much for his tired, loving soul. Rosa buried him with the last of their meager savings. The house felt too big and silent without him. His rubber slippers still sat by the door, covered in dust. Every morning she woke up and reached for his hand, but there was only cold, empty space on the bed. Then the supermarket managers called her into the small office. "We are restructuring the company, Aling Rosa," they said coldly. Their voices were as freezing as the office air conditioning. At 48, her back always throbbed with sharp pain. Standing for 10 hours a day had broken her strength. They gave her a small envelope with very little money. She was too old to start over in the city. No one wants a cashier with graying hair and a limp. She tried to grow her small sari-sari store business. She needed more rice, canned sardines, and bottled water. She needed a way to pay for Paolo's school fees. The money from the supermarket disappeared like the morning mist. She went to the neighborhood lenders for a quick loan. They call it 5-6 because the interest is a trap. For every 5 pesos you borrow, you pay 6 back. It is a cycle that never ends for the poor. The lenders watched her like hungry hawks in the sky. Then came the terrible July floods that broke everything. The monsoon rains fell like heavy, endless grey curtains. The Pasig River overflowed in the middle of the night. Dirty brown water rushed into their small, rented room. The smell of sewage and mud filled the dark air. The water rose quickly to the level of Rosa's chest. "Paolo, wake up! We must go to the roof!" she cried.
They climbed the ladder as the floor disappeared below them. She watched her meager life float away in the dark. The blue shoebox of receipts drifted out the open door. That box held 14 years of her honest, hard work. Now the paper was turning into grey, mouldy pulp. Her history was melting in the stinking, muddy floodwater. The ink ran like black tears across the wet floor. She had no proof left of who she really was. The world was washing away her dignity and her past. Everything she worked for is dissolving in the muddy water. If you believe that God sees our silent struggles, even when all hope is washed away, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. The next morning, the sun came out over the wreckage, but the water had taken more than just her furniture. It took her documents and her sense of security. The sari-sari store inventory was a total, rotting loss. The bags of rice were soaked and smelled of rot. The canned goods were buried under thick black slime. She stood in the mud and felt completely hollow inside. Her back hurt more than it ever had before. Paolo looked at her with wide, hungry, frightened eyes. She tried to pray, but the words felt like lead. "Lord, why did you take my Efren and my life?" The sky was blue and silent, offering no answer. She was now a widow with a mountain of debt. The lenders would come soon for their pound of flesh. The shoebox was gone, and so was her peace. She felt like a ghost walking in her own home. Every step in the mud was a step toward despair. The collapse was slow, but it was absolutely certain. Betondo silence is not like the province silence. It is not peaceful or filled with cricket sounds. It is heavy and smells of old, wet smoke. It feels like a thick, grey weight on Rosa. She has stopped going to her local parish church. The eyes of the statues felt like sharp needles. She had no coins left for the offering box. She felt ashamed to stand before the golden altar.
"I'm a beggar now," she whispered to herself. Every time a motorcycle passed, her breath caught. She feared the heavy boots of the debt collectors. She imagined Mr. Magno pointing at her small door. She would hide behind the thin, peeling plywood walls. She held her breath until the engine sound faded. Sometimes she would walk all the way to Rizal Park. She sat on a broken bench near the sea. She watched the waves hit the jagged black rocks. The water did not care about her mounting debts. The wind did not ask for the interest payments. She stayed there to avoid the empty kitchen shelf. The plastic rice container was a ghost in the dark. It was white, hollow, and stared back at her. Aulo had changed so much in these few months. He stopped asking for new shoes for his school. He stopped asking for the sweet Jollibee chicken treats. He moved like a shadow through the small room. He saw his mother's hands shaking every single morning. They lived under the same piece of rusty iron, but they did not share their deep, burning hurts. The silence grew between them like a thick wall. She felt she was losing her son and herself. Her faith used to be a warm, protective blanket. Now it felt like a cold, heavy mountain stone. She was so tired of carrying it up the hill. She felt that God had moved to another barangay. He was too busy for a widow in Tondo. If you believe that God never leaves the side of the broken-hearted, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories of hope. Perhaps he only listened to the rich people now. Her heart was turning into a dry, hard shell. She was waiting for the final, heavy blow. The world was closing its doors on her life. Soon, there would be nowhere left for her to run. Everything she loved was slowly turning into grey dust. She sat in the dark and waited for nothing. The shadows in the room were long and cold. The salt from the sea air stung her eyes. She did not even have the energy to cry.
Despair is a very quiet and very hungry guest. It eats your hope while you are still awake. Rosa felt she was already being eaten by it. It is 7:15 in the dark Tuesday evening. The electricity was cut exactly 2 long days ago. The small room is swallowed by the thick Manila heat. Rosa is sitting on the cold, cracked linoleum floor. She is staring at a single leaking spot above. The water falls slowly like a rhythmic counting clock. Drip, drip, drip. She has only 42 pesos left in her pocket. That is the total price of her remaining life. There is no more crying in this small room. There is no more bargaining with the silent heavens. She has finally reached what people call the stop. Her mind is as flat as the floor beneath her. Paulo comes close and whispers in the dark. "Ma, is there any rice for us tonight?" he asks. Rosa does not even turn her tired head. She does not look at her only beloved son. She does not have a single word to give him. Silence is the only thing she has left to share. She feels the darkness closing in on her soul. Everything she once loved feels like a distant, painful dream. If you believe that even in our darkest hour, God is preparing a way out, please support this video with a like and subscribe to our channel for more stories of faith. She realizes she does not even hate Mr. Magno anymore. Hating a man requires a fire she cannot feel. Her internal flame went out with the electric lights. She is just a body waiting for the end. She is waiting for the walls to finally close in. The darkness feels like a physical hand on her chest. She feels the weight of the roof above her head. The smell of the damp floor is very strong. The world outside is loud, but she is far away. She is drifting in a sea of grey apathy. Every breath feels like a heavy, useless chore. The dripping water is the only sound in the room. She wonders if the floor will eventually swallow her. She does not fear the collectors or the hunger anymore.
Fear is a luxury for those who still hope. Rosa has no hope left to feed her fear. She is simply there, existing in a hollow space. The shadows are long, and they feel very cold. The linoleum is hard against her aching old bones. She wishes she could just turn into the dust. Dust does not owe money to the lending office. Dust does not have to watch a son go hungry. She closes her eyes and prays for the nothingness. But Tondo night is a cruel, unblinking witness. She has given up on every single earthly dream. The silence of the room is now her only friend. It does not ask questions or demand any payments. She is waiting for the final curtain to fall. Her soul is resting in a deep, dark valley. The silence is finally complete and very heavy. A firm, rhythmic knock echoes on the wooden door. Rosa does not move from her spot on the floor. She thinks it is the landlord coming for the rent. She thinks it is Mr. Magno's men with heavy boots. The knock happens again. 1, 2, 3. It is a steady sound, not angry or loud. Rosa stands up slowly, her joints clicking in the heat. She opens the door just a small crack. A man stands there in the dim hallway light. He wears a plain, sweat-stained white barong shirt. His face is weathered and tanned by the tropical sun. He looks like an ordinary government clerk from the city. His eyes are deep and very, very calm. He does not carry a Bible or a food pack. He does not look like a social worker or priest. He wears simple sandals that are dusty from the road. "May I come in, Aling Rosa?" he asks softly. Rosa steps back without saying a single word to him. The man walks into the small, dark Tondo room. He does not act like a stranger in her house. He looks at the ceiling, then at the peeling walls. He points to a dusty Seiko wall clock on the wall. The glass is cracked and the hands are frozen still. "That clock has been stuck for a long time," he says. "It stopped at 3:15, didn't it, Aling Rosa?" Rosa looks at the clock she had ignored for months. "The battery died after Efren passed away," she whispers. The man nods and sits on a small plastic stool. He looks at her with a gaze that sees everything. He does not judge her for the empty rice bin. He does not blame her for the darkness or debt. "Where is the blue folder Mr. Magno tore?" he asks. Rosa freezes, and her heart begins to beat very fast. How could this simple man know about the blue folder? How could he know the name of the bank manager? She feels a strange warmth in the cold, dark room. "It is in the corner, under the old newspapers," she says. Her voice is trembling like a thin wire in wind. The man leans forward, and his presence fills the space. "Bring it to me, Rosa," he says with quiet authority. "The truth is not lost just because paper is torn." Rosa moves to the corner and finds the ruined folder. The plastic is jagged, and the documents are very dirty. She hands it to the man with her shaking hands. He takes it with a touch that is incredibly gentle. "He said your God would not pay your debts," he says. Rosa looks down at her bare, dusty feet on linoleum. "That is what he shouted at me," she whispers quietly. The man looks at the torn paper with deep sadness.
He does not know who holds the world's true books. The man's watch is old and has a rusty strap, but it ticks with a perfect, steady, living rhythm. Rosa feels her breath coming back to her tired lungs. She feels that she is no longer alone in Tondo. The darkness of the room feels less heavy now. The man looks at Paolo, who is watching from shadows. "Paolo, do not be afraid of the morning," he says. "The sun always finds a way through the rusty iron." The boy steps out and looks at the stranger's face. The man smiles, and it is like a soft light. "Wait here, Aling Rosa," the man says very firmly.
We are going to look at these papers together now. Rosa feels a spark of something she forgot long ago. It is not hope yet, but it is not death. She sits on the floor near the man's dusty sandals. The Tondo night is silent, but the silence is different. It is the silence of a witness who finally arrived. The man begins to spread the papers on the stool. He touches each one as if it were pure gold. Rosa watches his hands and feels a deep, holy peace. This man is here for her, the widow of Tondo. He is here in the sweat and the heavy heat. He is here in the debt and the bitter shame. "We will find what was lost," the man says softly. "Nothing that is true can ever be truly destroyed." He begins to read the smeared ink on the photocopies. He looks at the torn birth certificate of her son. "This name is written in the palm of a hand," he says. Rosa does not understand, but she feels very safe. The man looks at the deed for her small stall. "You worked 14 years for this tiny piece of land. I saw you every morning at the supermarket, Aling Rosa. I saw the green vest and the honest, tired smile." Rosa's eyes fill with tears that are finally warm. "You were there?" she asks with a trembling voice. "I am always where the honest work is done," he says. "I am always where the heavy burden is carried." He begins to smooth the wrinkles in the blue folder. His fingers move with a slow and steady grace. The smell of jasmine fills the small hot room. It is a smell of the province, of better days. The man looks at her and his eyes are like stars. "The manager was wrong about your God," he says. "The debt will be handled, but your dignity comes first." Rosa feels the stone in her chest beginning to melt. The stranger sits in the dark and brings the light. He is a simple man with a very rusty watch. But he knows her name, and he knows her pain. The night is long, but he is staying with her. He is the first person who saw her in months. He is the one who knocked when no one else did. The Tondo silence is finally broken by a friend. Rosa breathes in the scent of the jasmine and peace. She is no longer a ghost in her own house. She is a woman whose story is being read. The man turns the next page with a gentle hand. "Let us finish this work together," he says softly. The stranger stays for one long hour in the small room. The heat is still there, but it feels less heavy. The candlelight flickers against his calm brown face. He begins to talk about things he should not know. "I remember the smell of the warehouse, Rosa," he says. "The floor wax was very strong in the SM break room." Rosa looks up with wide, shocked eyes. "How do you know about that place?" she whispers. He does not answer her question directly. He just smiles, a very soft and knowing smile. "You used to sit there and pray for your Ephraim. You ate your cold rice while others laughed outside. I saw you counting every single centavo in the dark. Then the stranger speaks the exact number of her pain. 22,450 pesos. He says clearly. The numbers hang in the air like heavy bells. Then he repeats the words of the cruel manager. Your God will not pay your debts, he says softly. Rosa begins to shake like a leaf in a storm. The memory of the office returns like a sharp knife. She feels the weight of the floor on her knees. She remembers the boots stepping on her torn papers. But the stranger looks her directly in the tired eyes. The debt was real, Rosa. His voice is like silk. But the humiliation he gave you was a total lie. You were never invisible in that busy supermarket. You are not invisible on this cold floor tonight. For the first time in years, the pressure breaks. The tight knot in her chest finally begins to loosen. She feels a strange warmth spreading through her heavy heart. The shame that felt like lead is starting to melt.
The room feels larger, and the air feels very clean. She realizes this man did not come to give money. He did not come to perform a loud magic trick. He came to show her that she is still alive. He came to tell her that she truly exists. She is not just a number in a debt book. She is Aling Rosa, a woman of great silent dignity. The warehouse was loud, but he heard her quiet prayers. The office was crowded, but he saw her lonely tears. The stranger reaches out and touches her trembling hand. His skin is warm and feels very real to her. You have carried this mountain for too long, he says. Now it is time for you to stand up again. Rosa feels her spirit rising from the dusty floor. She is no longer a ghost in her own house. She is a mother who is finally being seen. The stranger's words are more valuable than any gold coin. They are the medicine her broken soul really needed. The warehouse smell of wax fades from her mind now. Only the scent of jasmine and peace remains with her. She is Aling Rosa, and she is no longer alone. The dark Tondo night is now filled with quiet light. Her son Paulo watches her from the corner and smiles. The stranger looks at them both with so much love. It is the first time Rosa feels beautiful in years. She is a child of God, and she is found. The morning sun shines through the small window now. The man in the simple barong is gone today. Rosa finds a stamped paper on the wooden table. It is a certification of loss from the city. Beside it lies a small and very clean note. It has the name of a legal aid clinic. There is no bag of gold on the floor. But Rosa feels a strange new strength inside her. She washes her face with the cool, fresh water. She walks back to the Pagasa office with Paulo. This time, her knees do not shake at all. She does not hide her face from the neighbors. Mr. Magno is not at the front counter today. A kind young lady asks how she can help. Rosa speaks with a very clear and steady voice. She files a formal complaint about the lost documents. She reports the harassment she suffered from the manager. The truth is finally coming out into the light. The office workers look at her with new respect. They negotiate a fair 24-month payment plan. The debt is still there, but it is manageable. A few days later, a quiet miracle finally happens. The local cooperative needs a new head cashier now. Rosa applies and tells them her whole life story. They see her 14 years of honest supermarket work. She gets the job because she is very reliable. The heavy weight is gone from her tired chest.
She no longer fears the sound of a motorcycle. Back at home, she takes down the Seiko clock. She puts in a fresh new battery today. The hands begin to move with a steady click. The rhythm of her life has finally returned, Po. God did not drop gold from the blue sky. He did not make her debt vanish like magic. But He showed up to answer her broken door. He gave her the dignity to stand up again. He reminded her that she is never, ever invisible. Faith is found in these quiet, daily decisions. It is the strength to keep walking forward alone. Peace is knowing that you are truly seen, Rosa. She smiles as she cooks warm rice for Paulo. The Tando silence is finally a very peaceful one. Her story continues with hope and much quiet grace. If this story reminded you that God sees everything and acts in His own time, support it with a like, subscribe to our channel, and write the word faith in the comments if you believe in His quiet justice.